Hello and welcome to WPRoundtable.com, where we talk about all sorts of random stuff WordPress related. And today we are discussing content creation. Let's go ahead and start with our introductions. Kellen, would you like to go first?
I would, sure thing. Kellen Mace is my name, freelance web developer from the east side of Michigan. I have a new site up as of several weeks ago, kellenmace.com, so go there and check me out.
All right. I am Kyle Maurer, lead developer for Real Big Marketing based in Jackson, Michigan. Love working with WordPress, making sites, solutions for small businesses, and making WordPress plugins as well. And so looking forward to talking about content today.
And my name is Jason Crawford, independent web developer based out of Medellin, Colombia. And again, we're starting with content today. So first thing on the list today is how to select appropriate content. General rundown, I want to kind of hit, there's two different types of websites you might have, a niche website and an authoritative website. And a niche website's pretty easy. You're going to pick an entire website and base it off of that particular piece of content. So a niche website would be if I want to write all about iPhones, well, then it's content related to iPhones, whereas if you're in a business or you're doing an authoritative site, you need to be a little bit more broad, a little bit more open, and start selecting topics that evolve around your business or your website, but they don't necessarily need to be that issue every day. Does that make sense? So you guys feel the same way about that?
Yeah, definitely. Are you just to pick it apart a little, Jason? Are you saying like if I have a site that sells baked goods for specific purpose for we only do really decorative birthday cakes or something like that, writing blog posts about like what are five things to look for when looking for or when searching for a decorative birthday cake in the metro Denver area or whatever that may be, just to lead prospective clients to your site, kind of targeting things they might search for like that? Or am I way off base?
No. You're kind of right. I guess it's all a spectrum of things. So you've got the very, very niche end, and then you've got the broader end, and where your business falls into that, and where you're going to be targeting. So a classic niche website would be somebody selling baseball caps. So they're not even in business. They're just selling baseball caps online, affiliate marketing or retail, whatever. So they're going to continually try to write about baseball caps specifically, whereas something a little broader, recent example coming to mind, again, real estate, been working with the same guy for a while. There's a lot more that goes into that rather than just buy my baseball cap. So you might talk about mortgage rates here or home values in different parts of town, different areas. But yeah, that's still relatively niche because you're still looking in that particular market area. Whereas you might have something like what we've got going on, which is still quite a bit broader because we're marketing to, or not marketing, but we're discussing things with everybody across the entire web, and we're discussing a relatively large topic, which is WordPress. If we were just to talk specifically and be the plugin site, we'd be a little bit more niche. And if we were talking only SEO plugins, we'd be extremely niche site. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a good way to look at it, Jason. That there are, you want to identify where your site sits. How are you focused on like a single specific topic, or is there a wider range of topics that work for you or that are important for you in your business? Something like maybe a news site is going to be not so topic specific. Or maybe really it could be news in a specific industry, or like news in a specific geographic region. But then there are sites like Wikipedia or something that is just covering everything that can be written about. So we all kind of fall in there somewhere, and I think it's important to evaluate like how how broad your potential topic base is a little bit early on.
Yeah, I find that's really a hard one for certain clients and certain people because they want to focus on their niche. And especially if they're a new company trying to get started, you might want to broaden that out as much as you possibly can. Especially, I know you're going to talk a little bit about search engine optimization later on, but to kind of drive traffic in other realms. So, you know, if we were to take that real estate example, it's real easy to write articles about, you know, properties in this area and continually write almost the same article with different information about this different neighborhood or something. Whereas it can be really easy to forget about the lending process, the selling process, and kind of include these things that a new buyer or even experienced buyer might be looking for that would drive traffic to your website rather than the simple real estate in Chicago that's probably somebody's probably spending tons of money to stay on top of Google for. You can really draw in and build that content and build that customer base and build a little bit better connection with them by covering a little bit broader aspect than that. If it's what your clients are going to need to know, if we're going to talk, you know, tomato farming, we don't, even if it's a website all about tomatoes, you want to cover, you know, things like what kind of soil are you using, what kind of water, what water rotation do you got, all these other things these other questions that people might want to ask about your topic to kind of bring those people in and divert just from tomato sales. You know, if you Google tomatoes, you might get Walmart. You know, local tomatoes, you might get Walmart. Who knows? Whereas if you're actually looking to grow tomatoes, you might want to know what kind of soil is best for them, what kind of sunlight do they want, anything along that line that you can kind of branch off. And it's really good to know that at the beginning when you're starting to structure your content. How can you branch off, still be on topic, without being just, I like red tomatoes, here are some yellow tomatoes, and I'm going to try to grow a blue tomato. The content can get really boring. It's probably not going to be very educational, and you're really not bringing in people who might otherwise be looking for other key terms to come and find the information that you've got or that you can provide. If you're an expert in that field especially, there's no reason why you can't be bringing those people in who are looking for that information that may not be looking for those particular terms as well. I'm working with a buddy of mine who's a machinist, and when he starts talking to me, hey man, put this in layman terms. Don't try to sell it to me as a B2B because you're not a B2B guy. You don't need to be talking all this market jargon. But if you're that B2B guy, talk business to business. You know, make your content available that way. But if you're doing business to consumer, you got to put that kind of stuff at the consumer level, as opposed to telling me what a widget number 69 can do for me. I need to know what a widget number 69 is.
Yeah, and I definitely say that in my experience, broadening this focus a little bit can be very challenging for a lot of clients. And so I'm often having these conversations with them about how we can, you know, kind of expand our reach a little bit and broaden the topic that we're covering to interest more people or attract more people from different angles to what we're trying to do. You know, so first example that comes to mind is I had a client who does World War II programs where he puts on these like events and tells World War II stories and talks about his experience interviewing survivors of World War II. And he's a really informed World War II historian guy, but kind of struggled with coming up for ideas of what to put on his website that we made for him. And so I would have these conversations about, you know, how we could do more than just publishing when's the next event coming up, which is all I can think of by default. But I started to say, what if we take some of these specific stories that you know from World War II and you turn them into like a blog article and you say, you're right, did you know this about World War II? Or what if we make little videos of you telling one of these World War II stories that's been related to you by a World War II veteran? Or what if you provide some commentary? And some of these have been more popular blog posts on his site to date, where he wrote his very educated perspective on books and movies about World War II, where he would write, oh, the best years of our lives was actually a really good World War II movie, and here's why, or here's what I was told by veterans who watched Saving Private Ryan, and some of those experiences were really moving when he talked about how real survivors of the war reacted to these movies. So that's the kind of thing that I talk about with them, to give them ideas for how we can like expand and like begin to attract people, especially in this modern time where young people like myself, I know what Saving Private Ryan is and other movies like that, and I may be interested in reading the perspective of the people that these movies are about. So creating content like that was really helpful for this client, and my role is often in these conversations just giving ideas. Have you thought about it from this angle? Have you thought about it from that angle? You know, here are other ways that you can cover your own topic.
You know, just listening to you speak there for a minute, it kind of reminded me that maybe we need to step back a second and explain why are we creating content. So for somebody just jumping into WordPress to create a personal blog, that's obvious, right? You're getting your story out, or you're trying to attract viewers. Maybe you're trying to sell a product. I don't know. But especially from a business perspective, I guess from everybody's perspective, you need to know why you're creating that content and what this blogging platform brings to the table. And in my eyes, there's two main reasons that you're creating content. One is to attract the customers, so either through social media, by social sharing, or search engine optimization, get yourself on Google, things of that nature. You want to first attract people, and then you want to build customer loyalty or fan base loyalty or just community, whatever it is. But you need that story to get people engaged. You need to bring them in. They need to understand who you are, what you're about, what you're bringing to the table, and how they can be a part of that. So I think that's really an important aspect. Is if you deal with certain people who are in that business mindset, they don't really understand. Yes, I need to be able to sell my products online or something like that, but they don't understand that you're making that personal connection. You're connecting them with the product that you're bringing to them, whether that's information, whether that's education, entertainment, a physical product, whatever that might be. That product, they need to be brought in, explain that product, connected to that product, and those blog posts, that writing, that content is really what brings those two things together, bringing people to the table and then explaining to them what you're bringing to the table.
Yeah, I think and another thing that comes to my mind when we talk about that is the role of Google Analytics in talking about stuff like this. So in the past, for me, that's been a really important contributing factor to these discussions that I have with my clients or my associates and colleagues when we talk about even our own content. Usually a prerequisite to conversations like this about, you know, why are we publishing and what should we be publishing and what are other opportunities for us to cover stuff, would be going to Google Analytics and studying that and getting some interesting information, because it's very educational and can really help us make very smart decisions about what to publish. So we've learned some very interesting things. Like, for example, on even our own website for my business, I've been consistently surprised about which blog posts are the most popular for us. There's a certain category of blog posts that we publish that I never expected to be the most popular, but has brought in a lot of traffic to our website. And so we've looked at these, and it's changed the dynamic of the conversation for us about what content should we be publishing. Because first we look at what is bringing in traffic, and then we look at what are people doing as they come in. And some traffic we determine is getting us results. Some people are actually connecting with us and converting and becoming customers, and other traffic that's coming in is resulting in nothing for us. And so we evaluate the results of traffic that comes into our site, and that kind of helps us sculpt our strategy for going forward. Like some of it, we say this kind of content we need more of because it brings in traffic, or this kind of content we need more of because it converts customers or converts visitors into customers. So Google Analytics is like a critical component into this discussion, and with every client situation, I'm always saying, before we talk about this, we should be taking a close look at your Google Analytics so that we make smart decisions.
Cool, great points. Great points. Next on the list we had how to structure content, and I'll jump in with just a thought or two on that related to search engine optimization, or SEO. This is a huge topic worthy of one, if not many, episodes, right? But I just wanted to mention it really briefly, highlight it here because you have to think of it as you're writing your content. Joost de Valk, who's an authority in the WordPress space when it comes to search engine optimization, I've heard him speak a number of times and say, any search engine optimization plugin for your WordPress site can only go so far into optimizing things, and then it really comes down to you. When you post your content, are you choosing keywords that are really going to cut through the noise on Google, and if so, are you including them multiple places on your site so your site will rank for those certain words? That's not something a plugin can do for you, but something you would have to know when writing this content. So from one of his popular plugin, WordPress SEO by Yoast, I had just a few of the areas. So he recommends putting whatever keywords or phrase you want your article or your post to rate for. He recommends having that phrase in the article heading, the page title, the page URL, the content itself, the body copy, and also the meta description. All right. So again, his plugin can facilitate that and help to plug in those words in certain places, but it's up to you to fill in all the fields and choose that phrase wisely and pick kind of where they go. So.
Yeah, well, while we're on structuring, I think there's a couple critical aspects in structuring that people need to possibly consider. One is getting that eye-catching first paragraph out. So if you go to something like a Web 2.0 type site, you'll get a situation where they'll give you an intro block or something like that and tell you, hey, go ahead and fill out this intro block, and then they'll put the title there, or they'll put a header there. I'm going to do a share here on one of my travel blog posts. Let's see what we can get here. Is that coming through for everybody?
It is, yep.
Okay, so let me look at this. So this is obviously the post title, automatically done your basic information with date, author, and comments. All of that can be adjusted. I start with either a question or a catching paragraph, something that really needs to draw attention. And this is probably a really bad example because I used a lot more photos in this than I normally do, and I threw a really big one up top. But basically, you've got a real introduction paragraph, and you really want to kind of let that introduction kind of give somebody an idea of what this is going to be about, but not sell the whole story away. Give them a little reason to understand where this is going and why they want to continue reading. And then, in this particular case, I backstepped up to how I started the trip and moving on. So then tell the story, kind of like a 5-paragraph essay you would have done in school. Sell that first paragraph, sell that story with that first paragraph, tease them a little bit, get them in there, and that can be a headline or it doesn't have to be a headline, depending on how you've got it worked up. Another thing is breaking up your paragraphs. So you can see I've got maybe 4 paragraphs here, right? And I use big, bold letters so that people can read this on their iPhone because most of my traffic comes from some guy stuck on the Panamanian border trying to figure out how to get across, I'm sure of it, or the Nicaraguan border. So 50% of my traffic comes from that guy on an iPhone still trying to figure out how to get across. So I use big, bold letters for my iPhone users, my tablet users, and So it looks like it might be lengthy, but there's only 4 short paragraphs here. Before I break it up, I use another description or another H1 tag or H2 tag. Well, I think Kyle's going to get into the different H tags and whatnot. But make sure it's broken up. Break it up with pictures. Break it up with titles. Break it up with subtitles. But basically, keep breaking it up. Keep throwing something in there to keep people a little bit, give them an eye break. And the other thing is, don't have these huge run-on paragraphs. I know this may look like a really long paragraph to somebody just briefly scanning it, but because I use such big letters on here, it's really not. And the reason for that is, once you start, this is a bad habit I have with people, is they'll write like an entire 3-page long thing without ever breaking up into paragraphs or making too long of paragraphs. And back to that SEO plugin, they actually rate how easy your information is to read. So try to keep that easy. And if somebody doesn't have paragraphs here, they're going to turn their head around, look at something, and then come back to this page and not be able to see it. And they're like, I'm out of here. I'm not going to finish reading this. And that's one of the things I see a lot. Just statistically speaking, 2,000 words is generally the optimal, 1,500 to 2,000 words is generally the optimal length of an article, but I don't generally write that long. Let's see, what else have we got in structure? Yeah, a good conclusion, and again, this is a travel blog, so, I do a little conclusion. I didn't have anything better to call it than my conclusion. But I describe the city, a little bit more detail about the city and why I liked it and what things I enjoyed. And I've already discussed all the things I did up here and personality. So just kind of try to conclude that. And no matter what you're doing, put a good conclusion paragraph in there and a call to action. Try to get people to engage with you, talk to you, whatever that call to action might be. Bring that in down there. You can put in links to, I don't know if I've got any in this particular article, but somewhere towards the end of the article is always a good place to add in links to previous information that you may have written that's relevant.
Mm.
And I don't know that I have anything else on structuring.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I was thinking at the end there, too, there are some great plugins out there. If you want to be a little lazy about it, they have, related post plugins, I know, which will scan whatever, text you've just finished writing based on certain words you've used. It'll suggest, hey, these are other past posts that may have similar content, and it'll just plug those in right at the bottom here. That might be a really good way to do just what you're talking about, right?
I caution against that depending on your situation, and I have used in the past. The problem is they're rather resource intensive and they slow your site down, and so you kind of get a pro and con here. So what I do, I prefer to manually put them in. Now, if you've got a lightning fast, multi-million-dollar server like Google does, by all means throw all those related post plugins in there you want. But most of them do tend to just slow the site down incrementally. So they're one of those heavy resource plugins that I just kind of generally avoid doing and manually include other posts. But yeah, giving those a try, they look great. It's just if you're not on a fast, on a slow day, it'll drag my website way down.
Oh, gotcha. Good to know.
I throw into that, Jason, on that note that like you're totally right. Technically, related post plugins are pretty resource intensive, and they're one of those complicated things for your site to calculate, especially, well, most particularly if they're running on every page load. So if you are pretty interested in using a automatic related post plugin, there are some great techniques out there for, and this is kind of off topic for the day, but it's worth noting that there are definitely ways to make that work effectively and load faster, and they would have to do with like some caching methods. So if you're interested in that, maybe we'll cover it on another day, or you can do some research on your own on object caching, transients, and page caching, and other ways to make it so that the related posts that are calculated are not being recalculated every time a page is loaded, but are calculated once and reused on subsequent page loads, so that you're not really experiencing that impact on your server. So there are some pretty effective ways to get around that. Just so you know.
Well, we'll have to get into that because even with my standard caching plugins, I've found it to really make an impact on my site. But maybe we'll have to talk offline about that and see how that what maybe I'm doing wrong with those caching plugins, or if maybe I need a separate caching plugin for that.
Could be. All right, so I wanted to jump in and I mean, unless you had something to say, Kellen.
No, go right ahead. I'll jump in after you. Go ahead.
Okay. So I wanted to just go ahead and walk through some stuff pertaining to content. I'm not. I'll say first that I'm usually not the content creator or someone intricately involved in creating a lot of content, other than consulting and kind of advising on what content should be created or contributing to content created for my own business and doing my own share of blogging. But a lot of other people do a lot more times creating content than I do. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the features built into WordPress that the content creators need to use, and some things that I've learned about those. So I'm going to do a quick screen share here. And then, let's see. You guys see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So I wanted to talk just a little bit first about the Tiny MCE buttons. And Tiny MCE is this toolbar area above the WordPress WYSIWYG editor. That's what it's referred to. So whenever you see it here, anybody talking about Tiny MCE, this is what they're talking about: the editing tools that go in a WordPress WYSIWYG editor. It's just the name for it, and the whole category of content editing tools in context. So I've learned a lot, especially recently, about some of these buttons that are here that I'm not sure everybody knows. So it's kind of what I wanted to touch on. So these buttons here are designed to kind of help aid you in formatting your content, kind of like what Jason was talking about when he showed you the front end of his blog article that was published, and what he did to kind of break things up and enhance the content a little bit. So we've got some standard like text formatting elements here, like bold and italics, and some things that I've always known about. But I wanted to walk through some of the other ones as well that I think are kind of interesting. But first, I wanted to take some content and just kind of show how interesting I think it is and educational to apply formatting in the visual tab, and then take a look and learn about what it does on the text tab. Because and when I first started working with WordPress, I never realized this, but when you're working on the visual tab, all that's happening is you're getting the processed version of what's happening on the text tab. So if you want to really take a look and see what these buttons are doing, all you need to do is flip over to the text tab, and you'll see this is what actually that bold button was doing. It was wrapping your piece of text, in this case, with a strong tag. This is just basic HTML stuff. And so I think it's helpful sometimes to just flip over to the text tab and see what you were doing. I've had lots of instances in the past where I was formatting something on the visual tab, and I couldn't figure out why maybe this picture was inside of this unordered list or something, and I couldn't get it outside of it, or my formatting was applying to the wrong elements. And simply going over to the text tab, I could see the tags that were being applied, and I could very clearly see that, oh, doggone it, this closing tag is in the wrong place. So it was much clearer when I flipped back and forth between these. And so moving forward, some of these other buttons I think are less commonly used in my experience, but are still pretty cool to just see what they do. So we'll do a quick block quote and see what that does. This is something that is pretty effective when you're quoting someone within your content, and in terms of like just semantic markup, you know, the HTML will be read and interpreted by search engines as a quote, and it's visually consistent so that your readers understand it as a quote. And all it does when you switch to the text tab is add this block quote HTML tag, which I think is, you know, so cool. Adding things like a horizontal rule, a horizontal line, it's another great way to really break up your content. This is a tag that I only, moving forward, skipping through some of the alignment buttons and making links, the read more tag button is something that I never knew about until actually recently. So I had always known that this was here, and that when you click on it, you get these dotted lines and the more within your content. But I never knew what it did, because truly, when you preview your content, which I'll do now, it doesn't do anything to it. It doesn't change anything about the content you're publishing when it's posted. But I found out what this actually does is it adjusts your excerpt. And so applying this would shorten or would manually adjust the breakpoint for where your content cuts off if it's listed in like your blog page or an archive page in WordPress, or your home page if you're just showing a snippet from your posts. Inserting this more tag is a way to specify where that content cuts off. So someone has to click read more to go to the full blog post. So I just thought that was interesting. I never knew how that worked before I started playing with these buttons a little more. And so another button that I thought was really cool, or that I've always known was here, but I've been interested to find out how many people I've worked with didn't know was here, is the what was formerly called the kitchen sink is now called the toolbar toggle. Clicking on that doesn't do anything to your content, but it gives you more handy-dandy little options for formatting. And a bunch of these I found to be quite handy, and I never really knew were here for a long time that I was using WordPress. An important one that I use all the time is your text formatting, applying some basic HTML text tags. In particular, using these heading tags and using them appropriately for your headings and subheadings is a huge factor for SEO, as well as for the user experience of your readers. We're breaking things up and giving sections a label or a subheading to just give your reader context, or let them read through your content in like an easy to digest, clear and concise way. So these are something that people really good at creating content use heavily, these heading tags. I think the special characters button is also pretty cool. I never knew that this was here for a very long time, but it's something very, very handy for a lot of people to be able to just quickly and easily insert these unique characters and shapes right into your content, as well as an undo button and its handy keyboard shortcuts. I've always, for many years, been a very, very big fan and proponent of keyboard shortcuts, because I believe if you're a really effective computer user, you're going to learn keyboard shortcuts and get faster the way you do. Because nobody who uses a mouse for everything and clicks on everything will ever be able to keep up with somebody who knows keyboard shortcuts. That's just the way it is. So those of us who are interested in efficiency and speed are going to learn these handy-dandy shortcuts, because you can just work so much faster than anybody using a mouse. So that is another thing that I found very interesting, as well as a very cool feature, which I think is just so awesome for people blogging, is the distraction-free writing tool. I really, really love what this does. I'm going to click on this and just pop up my my tab in what WordPress gives you is just like this blank space to just start writing and creating your content. And I think this is just like an awesome way to just write content and just get your thoughts out, and as WordPress puts it, the distraction-free way. So this is like a really cool feature that I've seen very few people use, but I love it. And just mousing over the header brings you back to the standard options for formatting and inserting things and exiting the full screen mode. So those are just some things that I've learned about the WYSIWYG editor, TinyMCE, and how handy it is for creating content. Anyways, that's that, guys.
That's cool, Kyle. I have one question for you. I had one client who wanted to be able to add tables to TinyMCE in their posts, and I don't think it does it natively, right? But I was searching around and I found TinyMCE Advanced, the name of one plugin that it adds the table feature. You guys ever use that or something similar?
Yeah, I've used that before, and it does add a considerable number of new options to TinyMCE. So it's a pretty nifty plugin. It has all kinds of other things like that. Like obviously the buttons that exist there are nowhere near all the available HTML tags, just though some of the more commonly used ones. What is it? TinyMCE Advanced inserts just a whole lot more. So if you're really doing interesting things with your content, like Kellen mentioned, using tables, which I won't comment on using tables, I guess. But that's a great way to give you more options if you're the kind of user who wants a button to do it, to add that kind of functionality. So yeah, that's definitely out there, and even WordPress really has, for developers out there, WordPress has a great API for extending TinyMCE. So if you're like a service provider and you have a client who needs something specific, like that everything is cool, but they also need a way to make tables, then it's not complicated to just create your own little button and throw it in there, and satisfy your client's needs, versus adding TinyMCE Advanced, which gives them a ton of options that maybe they don't need all of them. So that's just another interesting thing to throw in, that it's not that difficult to extend on your own.
Yeah.
I've got one more thing I want to kind of add to this, Kyle, this conversation while we're at it, and that is, I'm sharing here. So we're on the back end here, and just in the most recent versions of WordPress, I think this is actually the most recent update, I think block quote has recently been added. I know for a long time I had to use a special block quote plugin.
Yeah, I don't have your video, Jason.
You don't?
I have it.
Okay, we're gonna.
Okay,
yeah.
Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, so I think this insert remore tag is new too. Don't hold me to that one because I don't use it very often. I actually go down and customize my own excerpts. But the other one I wanted to point out is you'll notice there's no longer a Word document tool. And I had a client contact me one day and say, where did my Word document tool go? And I need it back because I'm copying and pasting, because it used to have the option to copy and paste, and you would select this tool, it would pop up, and you'd paste it right in there. Well, that seems to have been integrated into WordPress now, so you no longer have to use that tool that used to be here to copy and paste in WordPress, and we have not yet had a problem with doing that since that tool magically disappeared.
Yeah. WP Tavern confirmed that. They said it was integrated. I read.
Yeah. Was it? I don't remember if it was version 3.8 or 3.9, but it was very recently rolled into the WordPress editor when they made some advancements to it, like the paste from Word feature.
Yep.
Funny, I even got my Word shirt on today, so it's.
Oh yeah.
Talking about Word, but they also enhance the WordPress editor so that you can drag and drop media files into it from outside the browser into the WordPress content editor, and it will bring up the media uploader, which is kind of a handy, quick feature for a lot of people, as well as inline editing of images is a way cool new feature, which I think has been much needed for a long time. So now we're at the point where you can resize your image within your content. And another one that I really like on top of that too is the gallery feature, which in the past showed like this plain light blue box that you can edit, but now it actually shows the pictures in your gallery within your content as you're editing it. So I think it's just fantastic.
Yes. Well, since you're going over that, I've got my screen share up, and what you're talking about here is this is new. You can just adjust the size just like that. You say you can drag and drop now, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I have yet
live
to
demo.
with that, but let's talk images real quick while we're on this content here. You want to we're going to talk. You need to make sure you got title attributes and you've got them where you need them to be. You can link this to anything and you give it there. But basically make sure your alternative text is related to your target keywords. And if you're using more than one image, you may want to apply those differently. But at least have one image in your, it's always good to have one image at least in your article, in your content that includes the image title attribute and alternate title text that has your keywords in it. And again, you can center that. You can align that left to center, right, custom size it. Again, you've already discussed just the ability, the new ability to just drag it into size and place. But otherwise, the other big thing I would say is make sure not to forget your featured image down here. And one other thing you can do, and there's another thing that's been relatively new to WordPress where you can just drag and drop. I don't have a video on this one, where you can just drag and drop a YouTube code in YouTube or Vimeo URL right into the text. I have found that to be a little bit buggy, so I still go in and get the actual the iframe, the embed code, and put that into my text editor. I'm not sure where the bug is caused, but every once in a while, about 1 out of every 10 times, I find there's a little glitch, and I've just started throwing them into the text editor using the embed code.
Yeah, I've had similar experiences too. I think some of the important things when it comes to that are that the YouTube URL is is the only thing on that line, and also that it's the right type of URL. Like, I don't think it'll accept the shortened version of YouTube URL, or maybe the. Actually, I'm not an expert on that, so I might not. But I've had an experience before where I was using the wrong version of the URL for that video and it didn't work, or I had something else on that line as well and it didn't work. So those are important.
Yep. Well, pretty much anything you've got on YouTube or Vimeo or any of these other media places, you can usually go and get an embed link, and it'll be an iframe, and you just throw that in the text editor, and I've never had a problem with that working.
Yep. Staying on topic with how to structure content, I just had 2 last thoughts on that. First one is we talked a lot about how to stress certain parts of your content, like how I went over H1, H2, etc. tags, which are more attention is paid to an H1, for example, than an H2, and so on for search engines and things like that. But also, kind of piggybacking off of that, I wanted to mention just a thought on how to word it. All right. So what I mean by that is you can just really quickly Google and find quick lists on just how to write catchy headlines, for instance. But that's going to draw in a lot of folks as well. just choosing the right headline. It's something as simple as that. So a few tricks are like using numbers. For some reason, people like to hear numbers used, and use really, you know, not quite extreme, but just really interesting adjectives. So like effortless, painstaking, incredible, things like that. And you can even combine them. So for instance, if I've just structured my blog post, and I think I have a lot of really great data on, the top 5 like cities to visit in the Hawaiian Islands, for instance. If I make my headline that's supposed to draw people in and catch attention, if I make that 5 interesting places in the Hawaiian Islands, right? I might get some clicks with that. What if I instead though name it 5 incredible cities, in the Hawaiian Islands or something like that? All of a sudden, you can, even just hearing those two, you're probably more likely to click on the latter. More interested in hearing about, well, what's so incredible about these, right? So it's using words like those. There are other tricks like that, but just 2 really quickly to mention. If you want to go even deeper into that, there's one excellent resource I had heard of, and Justin Hartzler, who we recently had as a guest on our show, recommends this as well. But it's socialtriggers.com, I believe. Yep, socialtriggers.com. That site is run by a guy by the name of Derek Halpern. He also runs a podcast called Social Triggers Insider, but he goes way more in depth with kind of the psychology behind it, like why people are drawn to, words with numbers, or with those extreme or those interesting adjectives in them. So how to word everything, not only your blog posts, but your mailers that you may do, things that you may send to your email list, or things in your sidebar of your site. How to word things so that people are just enthralled and enticed by what you're selling or the information you're cranking out, and really want to hear more about it. So I think on that website there's some free resources, but there are some paid ones as well. I've heard that as a great recommendation as well. My last thought was just related to the frequency of posting. Here some folks who get excited about the idea of launching a website for themselves or for their small business, whatever the case may be. They launch it and write a blog post or 2, and then think, well, I've already opened the floodgates. Where's the flood? Where are all the visitors I thought I would have, right? But the truth is, from all the speakers I hear who are experts on the topic, the truth is, it comes with dedication and with frequently keeping your site fresh with new content, right? So if that's blog posts or updated product, list, whatever the case, just being perpetually keeping your site fresh with new content and new posts, and being really diligent about sending out links to that on your social networks of choice, that kind of thing. So you just have a constant stream of traffic. As straightforward as it seems that that might be, a lot of folks seem to struggle with that. They think if they launch the site, then the business will come to them instead of them having to go get it, to a degree. So worth mentioning. That was it for that topic for me.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's real easy to build a blog or build a website and then not maintain it, not put the effort into it. And really, my general rule of thumb with any business is if you're not posting once a week, you're not doing it right. Once a week. I'm guilty on my personal travel blog, but hey, if I'm not traveling, I'm just not writing, and that's what it is. But yeah, once a week is goal for anything, minimum for business. And if you're trying to do online business, 5 times a week. It needs to be, if your business is primarily online, it needs to be 5 times a week.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's very important to keep things going, especially the fact that your competition is keeping things going. So there is no way to compete if you're not the one producing the most and the best. It's highly competitive out there. So another thing I wanted to mention, and I'd love to get your guys' input on this, is something I've learned about developing your core content. I'm not talking about blogging so much, but your core site content. before developing the design for the site. So this is an issue that I've run into in the past where we're trying to make content fit a design concept, and it doesn't work well, as opposed to trying to create a design concept for content. So I don't know if you guys have had experience with this, but it's been my experience that crafting the content that needs to be presented before even discussing the design and layout of a site is really the best way to go.
Yeah, excellent point.
I think you know where I stand on that. Content is king for me, and I couldn't care what the design looks like as long as the client's happy and we work on content. But yeah, there's definitely a need to understand where that content, how you're going to structure that content either before or during the design process. Because if you do try to stuff content in afterwards, it can be a headache, and it's not really going to make any sense, and it can all fall in your face and have to recreate everything.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, that one thought I had on that, that is I have one client who has a business in Greensboro, North Carolina. It's a running company, so they do a lot of outdoor races and things like that. And he paid a graphic designer to create a logo, and I think this would be a classic example. I think the name of the city is Greensboro, and it's the whole theme of their business is outdoor trail runs. It's very very earthy. Out in the backwoods, in the mountains and the trees and stuff like that, doing these trail runs for organized races. And so the logo they created is like bright orange and like a dark bluish purple color. That's kind of the color scheme. It's a nice looking logo. But when I received that, my first thought was, what is this bright orange and kind of deep blue color? Like it doesn't look earthy at all to me. Like it has anything to do with trail runs or or backwoods. Some of the things you might think about when you were browsing the website, that kind of thing. Even though it's a nice looking logo, it's like, to Kyle's point, does it fit the content? Maybe they could have, there could have been a better one. So.
Yeah, definitely. And certainly like in like smaller, more rush projects or projects that I walk into that I wasn't involved in to begin with, maybe a client sets up a WordPress site before they come talk to us, and they pick out a theme that they find online that they think just looks really sharp, and without evaluating their own content before making that visual choice. And so I'll come in and see the results of trying to make content to fit into this design. So they pick out a theme that has whatever features, big sliders, features, areas, featured products, a blog area, crazy advanced menus, widgetized areas, and they don't have content for it. And so when they're trying to utilize this theme, put their site together, they're struggling to put something into these spaces. They're incapable of effectively utilizing all the features of the theme, and so it comes nowhere near to the effectiveness of the demo that sold them. And so this is why I think it's important to be evaluating the content that you have and then molding a design specifically around that content, versus trying to find something else on the web, a theme or another site, and trying to manufacture content to fit that design concept.
Yep, I totally agree with you. I think a lot of times that's an issue I run into as well. If you're not going to have, especially a lot of times we want that blog, especially from that WordPress background, we want that blog to be something front and center because we know how powerful it can be. And a lot of times if people aren't producing that blog type content, that regular content, you just need to go ahead and switch that over and make that a back page somewhere. And and make a good quality homepage instead of using that as your homepage, because building blog content takes time. Everybody here I know has written articles before, at least for WPRT. So it takes time. You have to do it right, and if they don't have that time and they're not willing to or in a position to hire somebody to do that writing for them, then yeah, that's definitely that whole design concept of the site needs to be considered when that's going into play.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kellen, did you want to hit something else up?
The next topic we have, I think I'll defer to you guys. It was the using Creative Commons content.
Oh, yeah. So we
Just a
kind of
note
went
on
into those. Let's see what I've got here. Yeah, so we kind of went into photos a little bit here, but I didn't really want to dig into it too much. I just want to bring up Flickr and Creative Commons content real quickly. And for anybody who doesn't know what Creative Commons is, it's basically stuff that can be used free of charge. So you might have to give somebody credit for their design if you wanted to use this. Let me go back real quick. There are, I think, 6 or 8 different Creative Commons licenses, and you need to go through and take a minute to learn what each one is. But basically, it breaks down to Creative Commons you can use for commercial use only, or allowed, or modifications, or just none of those. And you can search all these, and all of them can be used. Creative Commons started with Flickr, I believe, or Yahoo. I don't know who actually started it, but it's gotten rather large, and you can do it. Here are a list of Creative Commons music communities where you can go in and find music for a podcast or for an introduction to a video seminar or something like that. And each one, there may be a different requirement for each song, but normally what it boils down to is I can use this as long as the Creative Commons license is, can be used, and from there I just have to credit the author. Now sometimes that gets a little sketchy. I prefer not to use anybody else's material at all if I can avoid it. However, occasionally you just need an image for that blog post because you've got to break it up and you don't have anything. For me, travel blogging, I can take pictures all day long and add something. But if you're doing blogging about or writing about information that's just not photogenic, as we're talking about things about WordPress, I have to do screen shares or something along those lines. As long as these are Creative Commons and you apply the Creative Commons attributes that are required by the author, you are welcome to use these, and I think I've already used 1 or 2 within WP Roundtable. But I just wanted to bring that up as a resource for places where you can get stuff and to share and include into your content as the content creator.
Very cool.
That's good advice, Jason.
Thank you. No, we think we've already covered. What was our next thing? The
Internal linking.
Internal linking. Yeah. So at one point I wanted to cover connecting content topics. We kind of discussed that when we kind of got into that plugins about related topics plugins and how I like to connect. At the bottom in my conclusion, I'd like to try to draw and give them that other option to link into some other related content. You can do that anywhere in your blog. I just kind of like to do it at the end. It's not kind of interrupting people or in your content, but it's a good time to, if you're from a business standpoint, if you're trying to, let's say you're marketing a product A and you're writing about how you use product A and use the sprinkler to garden your yard today, and then at the bottom, the very bottom paragraph, you may want to add that link to where you're selling that sprinkler. So I guess, I feel like we already kind of covered this, but I guess from a business perspective, that those first several paragraphs are that build up. You're trying to sell them on that product, and then that last product needs to be. You probably want to put it at the very beginning and at the very end. So if somebody just comes there and they're looking for that product, they know it's a good product. Boom, they can go into your shopping cart, or they can give you a call. They know what they're looking for. You wanted that content at the beginning, and then a link to that product or service or whatever it is you're trying to give as a business, trying to sell or provide. Have that service included down at the bottom, and with a link to how they can find out or other related articles, just so that you can do one of those two things again. Either take those people from one of your pages and bring them over to another one of bring them back to you instead of having them run off, or to try to convince them more, or bring them to your sales page.
Yeah, it's really practical.
Yeah. It is. Is that about it, guys? You ready to wrap up? Any final thoughts?
I think I have spoken quite enough for today. I guess I've made up for my missing weeks. My weeks in the lost world of La La Land.
Yeah, we're glad to have Jason back amongst us.
Yes, we are.
His WordPress wisdom. I think next week we'll be back again with the full round table, I anticipate, the dream team, and with another great episode, same time, same place, right?
Yes, sir.
That's right.
All right, gents. I'm going to cut her out and thank anybody for watching, and we'll catch you later.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Catch you later.
Out.